Welcome to the Performance Management and Appraisal lesson, Sections 1 and 2, in the Organizational Development Curriculum. This module, Sections 1 and 2 of the lesson, takes about 35 minutes. A separate module containing Section 3 of this lesson is about 20 minutes. As you go through this lesson, you should be prepared with a pen or pencil and a notebook or paper. Use these to take notes or to write down your thoughts for any journal activities during the lesson. You may also be invited to access additional resources on the PATH portal, or to take part in discussion forums with members of the organizational development courses and groups on the portal. There, you can share experiences, questions, and advice with other partners around the world. Remember, at any time you can click the table of contents links to the left of this screen to jump ahead or to go back to other screens in this lesson. Also, be sure to click the Complete button on the Resources screen at the end of this lesson to ensure that you receive credit for completing the course. Now, let's get started.
Hi, I'm Christy Randall, Organizational Development Advisor with the Center for Victims of Torture. Administrative supervisors, sometimes called managers or coordinators, help ensure that the specific tactics, processes, and methods used by staff support your organization's mission. Also important are defined policies, processes, tools, and documentation. When they are used through all levels and departments, these items help ensure consistency, establish or clarify shared expectations, and preserve institutional knowledge. Two other lessons in this Organizational Development HR Essentials curriculum, the Supervision and Management lesson and the Employee Management Tools lesson, address these ideas in detail. In this lesson, we will focus on one type of employee management tool and process that is essential for good supervision and management: performance management. We will take a practical look at performance management processes, address how they help align individual performance with the needs of your organization, and explore a specific performance appraisal tool that you can adapt to your own organization or use as a resource for planning your own performance management process.
Please note, this lesson is divided into two online modules. This module that you are watching right now contains Section 1 and 2 of the lesson, sections on performance management and defining the process. The other module contains Section 3, completing a performance review, and includes a sample demonstration of how to fill out a performance appraisal form. After this lesson, you should be able to describe the role of performance management in your organization. Explain why having a consistent, documented performance management process and tool is important for staff members, administrative supervisors, leadership, the organization, and even your community. Identify the key elements required for an effective performance management process and the key components of that process. Understand and discuss the sections of one sample performance appraisal tool and consider how these ideas may relate to your organization's current or future performance management process. A shared performance management process is an important part of your employee management toolkit and of your administrative supervision processes. Consistent performance management policies, processes, and tools, plus clear documentation of those policies and processes, ensure that everyone shares an understanding of the goals and roles within the organization. Performance appraisals also often affect employee compensation, so a fair, consistent, continuous process is valuable. An annual performance appraisal, the formal evaluation of an employee's past performance, is one piece in the overall performance management process. An effective performance management process uses a practical system of objective measures to help define the work, communicate needs and expectations, assess employee work, and foster improvements throughout the year. In this approach, organizational leaders and supervisors recognize their roles and responsibilities in creating conditions that allow staff to do their jobs effectively, and staff receive consistent feedback on their performance and development. Again, please remember that in this lesson, and in the context of performance management, we use the terms supervisor or supervision to mean administrative supervision or coordination as it applies to all employees. We do not mean clinical supervision or processes that apply only to clinical staff. Along with other tools and processes, effective performance management helps unite all staff around the mission and provides consistent, shared expectations among staff, supervisors, and organizational leaders. This helps safeguard the health of the organization and ensure a positive client experience. A good performance management process can also help establish or maintain a positive work climate. This process can affect the 3 work climate dimensions of clarity, support, and challenge for all 3 groups. Let us look at how that works. For staff, a clear and consistent process is part of an effective supervisor-employee relationship and helps address key employee concerns. Remember, across all organizations, employees want to know if they are being treated fairly, whether or how their work matters to the organization, what is expected of them in their work, and how well they are doing their jobs. A consistent, well-documented performance management process benefits staff members on the clarity, support, and challenge work climate dimensions. The process and performance appraisal tool work together to help ensure the supervisor and employee have clarity about what is expected of the employee and about how the work will be evaluated. Staff are aware of their responsibilities and the role of their work within the organization's overall mission or work plan. They know what is expected of them and what happens if they do not meet those expectations. Without clearly defined expectations and evaluation criteria, a work critique may feel arbitrary or unpredictable. But when a good performance management process is used consistently across the organization, employees are more likely to feel fairly treated. In an effective process, employees also have the support of opportunities to discuss the resources they need to do their jobs. Employees also receive useful feedback and recognition for their work, and they have the chance to help define their work objectives and to contribute feedback to their own evaluations or appraisals. This type of two-way, consistent, year-round process gives each employee consistent opportunities to check in with the supervisor, get support for logistic or other issues, and clarify expectations. The opportunities to have input and to know the rationale behind their own work expectations also increase their sense of commitment. On the challenge dimension, the ongoing learning and improvement element of a good performance management process means that employees are empowered to learn from mistakes, take responsibility for their own performance and development, and develop new skills. The employee feels challenged, knows how he or she can grow in the job, and has plans for job-specific training or continuing education. A clear and consistent process also provides benefits for administrative supervisors or coordinators on each of the work climate dimensions. Supervisors have the clarity of a set of common expectations. They know what is expected of them and what they should expect of their employees. Supervisors also benefit by having the support of a shared set of processes and tools. There is more consistency among supervisors, and supervisors have a consistent means of communicating and addressing policies, regardless of the types of staff they supervise. This helps because supervisors are usually experts in a particular technical area or topic, but most are not HR experts. Also, a performance management process provides opportunities for supervisors to build relationships with their staff, relationships that are built on mutual feedback, support, and respect. Finally, the process helps supervisors plan, direct, and manage their staff's performance, which in turn supports the organization's mission. On the challenge dimension, supervisors take responsibility for developing themselves as supervisors and for guiding the performance of staff they supervise. And because supervisors are also members of the organization's staff, they benefit from the development or learning in their primary areas of expertise. An effective performance management process also benefits leadership and the organization as a whole. Remember, whether yours is a positive or negative work climate can directly affect your organization's ability to fulfill its mission and serve clients effectively. An effective performance management process ensures that team and individual work is aligned with the mission always, not just when hiring or at periodic performance appraisals. It can support staff needs and perceptions of work climate, which can help treatment centers improve and maintain the quality of the services they provide. For the organization and its leaders, when expectations, evaluation processes, rewards, and consequences related to employee performance are clear and consistent, the outcomes are more predictable. A consistent process helps support and protect the organization's work. Also, a defined process helps ensure compliance with local employment laws, national requirements, and industry regulations. These tools can also help minimize conflict within the organization and provide a path to conflict resolution, which may protect the organization from litigation. Finally, common management tools allow leaders to feel more confident that mid-level administrative supervisors can manage staff and work on a day-to-day basis. This allows upper leadership to focus more on bigger picture strategic work. So, whether clinical staff and professionals, administrative staff, or even other supervisors and managers, ongoing evaluation of employee performance is necessary to ensure the work remains aligned with the mission. Although evaluating employee performance each year is an important piece, performance management, or PM, should be looked at as a continuous process. The performance management process should be collaborative. Like the relationship between a supervisor and a staff member, performance management should be a two-way street. This means it should be built on mutual respect, support, and feedback, and it should be aligned around common goals. Also, staff support is critical to the success of this process. This means you should communicate with your staff about why you use this process, how the process works, and how it benefits them and the organization as a whole. It should be documented in a clear, written explanation of the process that is available to all employees. Documentation ensures staff and management have consistent information. This helps answer questions, create a shared understanding, and increase perceptions of fairness. Performance management should be not just a one-time event, but an ongoing cycle of aligning goals and expectations, feedback, evaluation, and planning. It should be closely tied to the staff member's job description and work plan, which in turn are aligned with the organization or department's purpose and mission. And finally, performance management should be historical in evaluation and forward-looking in plans. This means that work plan objectives and work expectations are defined based on the anticipated needs of the organization for the upcoming year or review period. However, employee performance is evaluated against the expectations and objectives that were set at the start of the year or review period, and not against new expectations. There are a few things that you and your organization should have in place to help establish or improve your performance management process. An organization or project work plan. Individual staff members' work objectives, work plans, and performance expectations should be aligned with the organization's mission and priorities. A work plan or other strategic planning tool for your organization or project helps supervisors and staff ensure that individual expectations and work plans align with the person's role in reaching those organizational goals. Good, up-to-date job descriptions. Job descriptions serve as the basis not only for hiring, but for understanding job roles, responsibilities, and performance expectations. They also can be used to indicate what on-the-job training or professional development may be needed. Therefore, job descriptions should be clear, well-written, and re-evaluated frequently to adjust for any changes. A clear reporting structure. An organizational chart shows administrative supervision relationships and how different roles fit together in the organization. Many treatment organizations are relatively small, and all of the employees know the executive leaders. Also, political and business traditions in many places are very leader-focused. The challenge is that a lot of focus on one leader can make it difficult to maintain clear, consistent supervision and coordination. Organizational leaders can become overwhelmed with day-to-day coordination rather than focused on important, big-picture and strategic issues. Delegating some supervision and communicating those reporting relationships creates a clear chain of command. This includes delegating supervisory tasks related to performance appraisal and the performance management process. This can be a big adjustment in mindset and in practice, but it increases clarity and efficiency. It also can help you support organizational stability and sustainability and be a thought leader in your field. Often delegating and creating this kind of reporting structure seems challenging at first. This is understandable, as employees may work on multiple projects led by different individuals. However, one good approach is to identify a person to be an individual's primary administrative supervisor. That supervisor manages and coordinates performance appraisal and other supervision tasks for the employee, but also asks for feedback and input from people who manage the employee's work on other projects. A defined process. This means establishing phases or steps in the performance management process, a general schedule for those meetings or steps, and having a documented performance appraisal tool that can be used for evaluating performance. We will talk more about that later in this lesson. Consistent practice. To be meaningful and valuable, performance management must be predictable and consistent, not sporadic or arbitrary. If planning and review of performance is inconsistent, if it is not done at regular and meaningful intervals, if there is no follow-up on the plans or appraisals, or if the process is overly subjective, it will not be useful. Performance incentives. Performance management works best when staff members perceive some benefit in doing their jobs well and in achieving their work objectives. An incentive for good or excellent performance helps with this. Compensation increase is one possible type of incentive, but there are many other types of incentives and non-monetary recognition that you can use to reward good performance. To provide continuous feedback and ensure alignment with organizational goals, Many organizations structure their performance management processes into 3 major phases: the work planning and objectives phase for both the organization and individual staff, the performance review phase, and the performance and development planning phase. These are 3 formal phases related to performance appraisal, but it is important to remember that the performance management process is ongoing. For example, between the work planning phase and performance review phase, the time during which the employee is actually doing most of the work that will be reviewed, there are ongoing performance management tasks. The first phase, work planning and objectives, comes at the beginning of the year or review period. It all begins with organizational work planning. Leaders consider the organization's overall mission and the project priorities for the upcoming year. They determine key objectives that the organization or specific projects within the organization will work toward in the coming year. Then, on an individual basis, the supervisor and employee jointly review the employee's job description and update it if necessary. The supervisor explains the organization's or project's current goals and describes specifically how these priorities apply to the employee's work objectives for the next review period. Together, supervisor and employee create a work plan of specific objectives and job activities for the next period. In this planning phase, the supervisor and employee should meet and agree on specific work objectives, discuss specific expected work behaviors, and define what indicators or evidence will be used to measure progress against those objectives and expectations, and how that data will be collected. These agreed-upon objectives, behaviors, and indicators will be directly reflected in the performance appraisal. Take a moment now to think about work planning and the role it might play in an organization. Can you think of a situation in your own career in which having a clear, agreed-upon work plan or work objectives did, or would have, helped you focus your own work? How about a time when it has or may have helped an employee better focus his or her performance? What challenges have you experienced with work planning? And, as a manager, what are steps you can take between planning and performance review time to help ensure your employees are working toward those objectives? Pause for a moment here to write down or discuss a few thoughts. Remember, regular ongoing meetings or check-ins between staff and their supervisors offer an opportunity to share feedback and make adjustments. This again benefits the staff, their supervisors, your organization, and even clients. Supervisory meetings also help build important relationships and trust. They facilitate communication between roles, clarify day-to-day priorities and expectations, provide ongoing feedback to help employees do their jobs effectively, and give employees the chance to identify areas where they need support. This helps supervisors and staff to address potential issues or concerns before they become major problems. Most of these check-ins can be brief and relatively informal, in person, by telephone, or online, and they should occur at least once per month with each employee. About midway through the review period, though, the supervisor and employee should meet specifically to discuss the employee's progress on the work plan and make adjustments if necessary before the performance review phase. At the end of the review period, each employee receives a performance appraisal, that is, an evaluation or review of their performance. In this performance review phase, the supervisor and employee meet to discuss the employee's performance according to the objectives and expectations in the employee's work plan. Remember, this should be a two-way conversation, and the employee should provide a self-assessment. Also, Remember that the employee's performance should be evaluated against the objectives and standards that were established for this past review period, and not against new goals or performance standards that may apply going forward. In this phase, the supervisor begins to prepare for the review meeting. The supervisor sends the employee written notification about the tasks the employee needs to complete before the review meeting, and sets a date for the meeting. The supervisor reviews the employee's job description and work plans, plus any other notes or action plans from supervisory check-ins throughout the year, and reminds the employee to do the same. Next, the employee and the administrative supervisor each complete an evaluation of the employee's performance using the performance appraisal tool. Evaluations take into account the agreed-upon work objectives and the expected work behaviors discussed in previous performance planning and meetings. Both rate the employee's performance and provide evidence and support for those ratings to help ensure clarity and shared understanding. The supervisor also seeks feedback from anyone else who oversees the employee's work on other projects and incorporates that feedback into the evaluation. The supervisor and employee then meet to discuss their evaluations of the employee's performance. This is a two-way conversation in which both share their observations and thoughts. Next, the supervisor completes a final version of the appraisal form, taking the full discussion and employee's views into account. Both the employee and the supervisor sign off on the form. Finally, the supervisor makes copies of the appraisal, one copy for the employee to keep, and one copy to be filed with personnel records. The performance planning phase comes at the end of the review phase. It brings the cycle full circle, making the transition from the employee's past performance to what is needed going forward. It plans for how the employee will meet new challenges and close any gaps. This helps the staff member and supervisor when they begin the work plan and objective phase for the next year or review period. In the performance planning phase, the supervisor and employee consider the outcomes of the most recent review and begin to look forward to how the employee will prepare for, improve, or grow in the next year or review period. They consider what core tasks, performance standards, and responsibilities the employee will face, paying special attention to any tasks or skills that are new, difficult, critical to success, or that were below standard in the past year. They also consider what training, resources, or efforts will be needed. As part of performance planning, the supervisor and employee will create an ongoing learning and development plan. This plan describes what the employee will do in the upcoming year or review period to build current skills or develop new knowledge and skills to grow in the job. If necessary, the supervisor and employee will also agree on a performance improvement plan to address any shortfalls or gaps in performance from the most recent review period. The purpose of a performance improvement plan is a little bit different from that of the ongoing learning and development plan. Whereas the ongoing learning plan looks forward to new challenges, the performance improvement plan is intended to help the employee address current gaps in performance. If any work objective in the performance appraisal was rated as needs improvement or unsatisfactory, the employee and supervisor should complete an action plan or performance improvement plan. The employee and the supervisor work together to determine what is needed to bring the employee's performance up to a satisfactory level on that measure or objective. They set a plan for what actions the employee, and if necessary the supervisor, will take to reach that level, and reiterate what evidence or indicators they will use to measure the performance. The supervisor and employee also determine a schedule and plan for how they will follow up on the performance improvement plan to ensure that the objectives are being met. In summary, consistent performance management processes and documentation of those policies and processes help ensure that the focus and quality of each individual's work supports your key organizational goals. This in turn supports the health of the organization and the work climate. A good performance management process benefits staff, administrative supervisors, and leadership within an organization by ensuring that each person knows his or her own role, shares an understanding of performance expectations for themselves and anyone they may supervise, has an opportunity to give and receive useful feedback, and is able to learn and grow in the job. A good performance management process is collaborative, documented, ongoing, tied to job descriptions, historical in performance evaluation, and forward-looking in performance planning. Performance management has 3 key phases: work planning and objectives, performance review, and performance and development planning. However, it is important to note that most of an employee's work and many less formal feedback opportunities come between the work planning and performance review phases.